Hello and a warm welcome to everyone to our latest webinar for the Nature in Our Cities webinar series, which is part of the Seeking Sustainability initiative of the Azim Premji University. My name is Shashwat DC, and I have the great honor to introduce this series today, which has been running for past many months, a year and more. And through these webinars, our primary intention has been to introduce people to flora and fauna that kind of exist around us in our neighborhood, in our cities, in our towns, rather than just the outskirt of our cities in the wildlife parks or the forests, etc. So our intention has been through these webinars to bring people closer to the species that coexist with us. They share our space with us, and how we can coexist, and how we can learn more about them, and possibly even help in these conservation efforts. uh, these webinars have been primarily based on conversations that we had with numerous experts, and we have spoken about species like birds in the past, spiders, madras hedgehogs, macaques, leopards, frogs, or even earthworms and cockroaches for that matter.
Wow.
In case you have missed any of these webinars, I encourage you to check them out on our YouTube channel, which are there, and I'm sure you'll have a gala time going through all of them. So, coming to today's program, we continue with our whole journey of discovery that we have, and we bring to you a primate species that is not that much visible to us, primarily because it kind of moves around in the night and stays up in tree canopies. So, today's guest is Slender Loris, a species that is majorly found in southern India and Sri Lanka, or how rather, let's put it this way, it's majorly disappearing from parts of southern India for that matter, more so in cities like Bangalore. To know more about these cute little slender things, we have with us today. Our guest is Kaberi Kar Gupta, ecologist and a researcher who has been working on and for these lorises for a very long time, over a decade or so. She
Two
has a
decades.
rich background of research. So thank you so much for joining us today, Kaveri, and welcome on board to this series.
Thank you. Thank you, Sasha.
And as usual, our host for the session today is, and we are very lucky to have with us, is Jayanti Ray Mukherjee, who's a faculty at Azim Premji University. She's also a restoration and conservation biologist with more than 10 years of field and laboratory experience. Thank you so much, Jayanti, for taking your time out and joining us from. So we are based in different timelines: Bangalore, Chennai, and US. So yeah, so this is a very collaborative effort. Welcome on board, Jayanti. Jayanti, you're mute. You're on mute. Yeah, yes.
Thank you, Shashwat. Thanks a lot for the introduction. And it's a pleasure to have Kaberi here today with us. And I would like to say a few words before I pass it to her. So, from the primate species that we are talking about, first I will give you a few words about the human species who hosted this
Just,
primate.
Jayanti, just before you do that, I'll hand over the baton to you. Just one small request to all our viewers today. If you have any questions or comments for Kaberi or for Jayanti for that matter, you can
Yeah.
type them in the live chat box and we'll take them on the end of the program. With much ado, the stage is all yours, Jayanti. And, look forward to hearing this talk.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So,
Sasha.
taking it from the primate species to the human host who hosted the species during her PhD, I met Kaveri in 1995. I remember Kaveri.
Yeah.
So you used to go around Bundanturai with a head torch on your head and looking for the lorises at night. I accompanied you many times, I
Uh-huh.
remember. And the first time I saw those big eyes, I was in awe, like, oh, wow, what a. I never knew actually this type of species we found was found in India, and it
Mm-hmm.
moves so slowly, so gracefully through the thorny bushes, and I was just so much in awe to see this species the first time. But then, of course, many walks came as surprises,
Afterward.
and I enjoyed all the walks with you and
Mm-hmm.
got to know about the species. So today, welcome you here to talk to us about this species. Um, why don't you start a little bit about what you did for your PhD and introducing us to what is Slender Loris? What is this species? What is the essence of Slender Loris? I
Thank
hand
you,
over.
Jayanti, and thank you so much for introducing me and first of all inviting me to give a talk on Lorises. It's one of my favorite thing to talk about all the time. Anytime anybody asks me to talk about Lorises, I'm ready to talk. So yeah, I've been working on Lorises. Probably I started in '94, and the way I started looking at Lorises was I was happened to be in Uttarakhand Munantarai Tiger Reserve at that time, helping Dr. Madhusudan Katti, who is also happened to be my spouse, on bird work. I was helping him to catch little leaf warblers for his PhD. And then at that time, the field director of Munantarai came and asked me if I would like to look at Slender Loris. And that just prior to that, I think it was Wesley Sundaraj and Dr. Rauf Ali, the late Rauf Ali, who were in Mundanturai and came to visit. This was after this big flood happened in '93. They all came to do evaluation of the forest covers there and showed me Slender Loris. And that's how I first got to see. I mean, I heard about it, during my undergrad, but I had no idea. So when I started going out with them to look for Lorises, the field director then asked me if I am interested in looking at Lorises, knowing that I actually studied primates for my master's and was interested in doing something with primate species. So I went out looking for them. Once when I first went to see them, I saw them. But when I got the funding, I got a little bit of funding from the forest department. So when I started, going out with my field assistants who were expert in looking for, lorises at night, we did not see any. And this was, I think, prior to before you came to Mundanturai. So there was like at least a month or more. We went out at night. We would go with our, torches and headlamps, not headlamps, torches. Didn't see anything. Then Rauf came back to field, and Rauf went out with me. So Rauf is the one who actually taught me how to look for lorises. So earlier, we were taking our big torch and going out at night, but the reason that we were not seeing is that what Rauf taught us is that we have to keep the headlamp close to our head. So close to the source of the light has to be close to our eyes, and the reflection of the light from in their eyes come to our eyes much better. So we can see them better. We can see the eye shine better. And they have this thing called tapetum, which is what the cats have or owls have. So that reflects this the layer in the retina, which reflects the lights much better. So in low light, they can see. That's the adaptation they have for being nocturnal. So that's how, after a month or so or more, actually, when Rolf came back and Rolf went out and Rolf said, you are just, wasting your time, Kaberi. Lorises are gone, extinct locally, in Rolf's style. It's like, okay, but I still didn't give up hope. So I continued to, look for lorises, and we found ones. And once we found, and then the search image got into our head, and then we started finding lorises, much more. And what we also realized when you came there in '95, that lorises are not distributed in Mundanturai regularly. I mean, they're not evenly distributed. So if you look at
So,
a loris,
Kaberi,
yes,
if I may ask you here,
yes,
so
yes.
what were the questions that you were looking at?
Oh, so that's a good question, Janti. So what we were trying to figure out at that time, where are those lorises found? So it's a basic question, like, are they found everywhere, or what's the, how do you even go around and looking for? Oops, sorry. came over us. How do you find them? How do you search for them? So we had absolutely no idea. So we were surveying all over Mundanturai Plateau to see where they are found. So basically, the question of distribution of slender loris. Make sense? So
Okay,
if you
yes.
can you see the slides now? Can you guys see the slides?
No, I think, yes, we can see.
Okay. So that's this is even though I said urban slender loris project, but here I'm going to talk about just the slender lorises that we had worked on in Mundanturai, in Kalakat Mundanturai Tiger Reserve. So what do we know about the lorises? So we knew that they were arboreal, but we had no idea about in the forest that how do they move around. So one of the finding of my research was like we realized that it requires continuous canopy to move. So they are canopy dwellers. If you look at the way their hands or four limbs are, all four limbs are, they're very slender, and they're long. So, but they have tail. So they don't jump from one tree to another tree. What they do instead, that they use, you can see in the pictures here in the second picture, that they are using these very slender branches of trees in the canopy and holding them. So that's how they move from one branch to another branch very slowly. So they're what, like creepy crawly mammals, primates, unlike the jumpy types of bush babies, and some of the lemurs also does jump around. So what they need is what I realized, this is from my research, that they need canopy. When they're in the canopy, they need continuous canopy. Basically means that the canopy has to have some touches with another canopy. One tree has to have some touches with another canopy. And the other thing that they also do is that they are solitary foragers, which means the males and female, they forage separately. So throughout the night, as soon as they wake up at around 6:37, as soon as it becomes dusk, when they wake up, they would wake from their sleeping sites. They don't sleep. Also, they don't sleep in nesting. The nesting sites are open canopy. They are not in like tree holes or any of those things. So they need some sort of canopy structure that also provides some cover from predators, right? So they need very specific canopy structure. So not only just continuity, they need specific canopy structure. They forage alone, and when they meet, after every bout of foraging, they do meet with each other. And the male females, they sleep. Sometimes they sleep in groups. Sometimes they sleep alone too. So the other thing then we found, so this was my first pre-PhD work, right? So I did all these basic work, and I also found that because they are canopy dwellers, because they need continuous canopy, they also don't like if there is a gap in the canopy. So if there is some kind of open forest patch, or within a forest patch, if there is a lot cutting and stuff of stump and stuff, tree cutting and stuff like that, they don't like that. So they don't go in those areas. So after that, I went off to do my PhD in the US. I came to Arizona State, and there I end up doing radio coloring. And even that is actually a story, because we never had held them in hand before. So here I was, very ambitious about capturing them, putting radio collars, and trying to figure out how the males and females behave, and their movement ecology and whatnot. We wanted to know. So the very first time I came back was I got radio collars. I got these big cages from the US, and I was going to put those I was putting those cages on top of the canopy, like people would climb up, my assistants would climb up, and they would put the cages up there. And again, after a couple of months, we couldn't catch any. All we were catching was like rats and civets and stuff like that. So then we decided that maybe one way to capture them would be to climb up the trees and get them. And again, I'm extremely lucky to have some fabulous field assistants who were ready to capture, get up on the tree, even 15 feet high or 20 feet high trees at night. So that was what we so what we found of those radio color. Here you can see one animal that's radio colored.
Yeah.
Males are paired with females. Males with no, there are three types of males. So there's one type that are paired with females. There are males who has no female but has a really nice territory, and they're waiting for the females to come in, as if that's what it feels like. And then there was another type that had no female. They would have no real territory. They would cover a large area, so it's like 150 hectares opposed to 5 hectares or less than 5 hectares for those males who had a nice territories. So and then there are females also. The females who had a paired male, they would have a smaller range, a smaller territory, especially if they have babies. And then if they don't have, if they're young sub-adult females, they have larger home range or larger territories. And here, interesting thing I want to tell you about is that this is a male who did not have one hand. You can see here the hand is missing, but he had a female for a long time. He had a baby with that female, and then the female disappeared. We had no idea what happened. Then the male himself disappeared. For about a month, we couldn't find him. We thought that he probably dead or so. Then one day we found him, started getting signals, found him about a kilometer away from his own home range. So that was kind of like he crossed the road, but he actually came and crossed the road in Munaturai, where the trees are on the road, the trees are connected, the canopies were connected. So that's again interesting. And here is a female. She had a baby. This was the first year baby, and then she had twin, which is also not very common. That they don't have babies immediately after the first year, set up babies second set immediately after the next season. That's not very common either. And this is a female with a newborn baby. So here, we had different types of habitat, and they were there from. Yes,
Kaberi, before we go to the habitat, I had a question related to their behavior. So I found it very interesting that they actually forage separately, males and females, whereas they live still socially or together in the country.
Lot of times, not always.
But any particular reason, do they get into fight because if they forage, or any particular reason that you can hypothesize or you thought about?
Yeah, yes. I think the type of food they forage on, the resource is not very common. So, like for example, in Mundanthura, I've seen them foraging on beetles, for example, or other insects. And they're seasonal foragers. So if you look at those insects are not available, or they're not abundant. Sometimes they do, it seems, go on ants nest, but I did find ants heads in their feces. So they were foraging on ants. But we found lots of beetle stuff. And then again, it's depends on when it's available, I think. And then after the monsoon, when there were a lot of fruits available, then they were switching to fruit. But the fruits are also very specific fruits. They were actually going for Ziziphus inoplea, and also one of the citrus species. So again, the Nartankai, I forget the scientific name right now. So they do also, it seems, forage on lizard and eggs, but we don't see them. We haven't seen found anything on their feces. So I think that the kind of stuff they forage are not available a lot. So therefore they forage alone. And so it's not like, if you have lots of things available at the same time, then you can go, in large group like other monkeys do,
So they
frugivores.
spread out to
Yeah, they
what?
spread out.
Okay.
And also the other interesting phenomenon they have, that the mothers cannot carry their babies for a long time. They do nurse them for a long time. So when the babies gets a little bit bigger, as we saw in the second picture with the mother, at that time the mothers keep their babies in a place, what they call parking behavior. They park their babies in a place on the canopy, then they would go around, forage, and then come back. So, and throughout the
So
night.
is there any caretaker kind of individual who takes care of the babies, or the babies are left alone?
What I noticed, that babies are left alone, but the mother or the other individual, I don't know whether it's a father or a, most likely it is another male. I mean, a lot of times I've seen males only around them. So if they do stay nearby, I mean, I've seen them on the, like they could watch them in a way. They won't be right there because they will be foraging. So mother comes back, nurse the baby, go back, feed, then come back again. And they do, for their size, because they're primate, for their size, they do actually have long nursing, period for their, because they're like what, 250 grams or less, 160 grams for the females, average height, average weight, and 8 inches long, 20 centimeters. So, they do lot of the mothers have lot of costs, I guess, for
Okay.
having babies.
So yeah, you were saying about their habitat, the habitat they use, and we were going
Yeah.
to talk about that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. So let's go back here. Um, so the habitats in Munantara, we have seen them in all different types of habitats, ranging from scrub forest to riverine or riparian forest to semi-evergreen forest to even sometimes in very monoculture like places, plantations. So but the better habitats were only in the riverine forests and semi-evergreen forest patches. So that's where you'd see the males and the females who are together, the paired, I call them paired males or paired females. So those pairs are going to be in those better habitats. And the non-paired males who are looking for females, they would be hanging out near those good habitats, not always in the best habitats. And the males who don't have any females or any partners, they are actually going around they have larger range and 150 hectares an average, and those are actually in areas which are scrub forest. But they do, I used to think that they disappeared, but some of them actually would have this large home range. They would come back, sometimes it would take them a month to cover the whole area. So there is certainly some kind of habitat choice is going on. And we did measure the insect abundance, and insect abundance are higher in, of course, the riverine forests and the semi-evergreen forest patches than um, in the star plantations.
okay. So I can obviously see your lit up face when when you talk about Lorises, and we can see the passion that you explored the Mundanturai forests with that passion. So now coming to what we are here going to more discuss is an urban setup, right? So
Uh-huh.
then coming from a lush green evergreen forest,
Yeah,
why urban? So
that's a good question. Very good question. So um, that I after my while doing my PhD, I had sons already, my first baby, and I took her to field, right? Did field work and everything. So then when I was writing up my dissertation, I had Nelavi, and I went into teaching at that time. So I was teaching full time at the college and a community college here. And then I also taught in the university, Fresno State University, for a few years. Um, what happened during that time, I realized one thing is that with one kid, it was easier to do field work in Mundanturai, or in the forest, which is what I always wanted to do. I mean, I still want to go back and do the work there. But I realized with my teaching and everything in the US, I want to do something that I can continue my research as well as doing the teaching that I was doing here. And one thing is, I never really got into doing research in the forests in the US. To me, you lived in Utah, so you know how beautiful the landscape is. But it never really interests me because the temperate zone forests are not very high in biodiversity or whatever. I mean, it never but what interests me is the complexity of biodiversity and the social ecological system, the people and biodiversity and how they are living together. I mean, protected areas, of course, you have people who are doing, they're protected, so you don't have people going in or anything. But whereas in urban areas or suburban areas, where you are actually finding nature and people together, and this reconciliation or the resilience in their habitat, and how how people are connecting to nature, I find, me being from Calcutta, I find that's really important, because majority of the people are living in cities, and most people in India also are moving to cities. So how do you make people understand nature is important, and you don't have to go out to go see, do any of this, um, seeing wildlife or anything that you with also climate change and all of these other stuff, that you need to really think about conserving nature or connecting to nature or conserving habitats right around where you are. And otherwise, if you don't connect with your nature, there is no way you can actually do any kind of long term conservation, because we tried doing restoration, we tried doing reservation, but those two did not really work. So that's how I started working in urban ecology in the US. And then when I went back to India in 2006, I think, for some vacation time, I went to Bangalore, and everybody was like, "You need to work on Lorises, because there is Lorises in Bangalore city, there is Lorises in ISC campus." And so I was like, "Wow, that's really important." So we that's really interesting too. And so we went out looking for Lorises in ISC campus. We didn't see any. Then I think it was back in 2010, 2011. I was thinking about maybe I should move to, do some work in Lorises in the city. 2013 is when I finally said, okay, we were there for a few months, and I think that's when all of us, those who are working in urban ecology, I think Harini was the main person who was working then in Bangalore, and Madhu was also there. So all these urban ecologists together decided that we need to do more collaborative work. And I was like, I jumped into it, and I said, okay, I need to work on Lorises. And it's also very, very fascinating to see, these lorises that you find them in forests, right? In dense forest, you have to go out at night, and even with radio collars, you can't see them. Here you are in ISC campus, and you can see the lorises there. You can hear them calling. So that's how are they surviving, in those kind of habitats. And then GKVK people told me that they are also in GKVK, and we have seen them here, there. So I started doing this, gathering people together, and also realized that the one way that I want to do urban ecology is through involving people, citizen science. That's how the public science or involvement of local people came in. Is that I thought that if we want to do any kind of nature conservation work or connecting to nature, lorises are really good, because by then already there is a big interest among ISC folks on lorises. And 2013 is also when I noticed that a lot of people are interested. A lot of people in the city are talking about slender loris. They are really excited about it. They're talking about that Lorises are like the icon of the city and stuff like that, icon of Bangalore. So I thought, maybe I should use this connection, this love for Lorises, to develop some kind of a project, a citizen science, public science project, where I can engage community members in developing something. That way they will be not only, um, come look for lorises, but they will also have this interest in conserving their own backyard. And literally they're
Yeah.
found in the backyard, right? So
Yeah,
that's how
actually,
it started.
it's very important. I mean, fair enough that you are saying that community and urban conservation tying together. And one
Mm-hmm,
thing I have seen as an academician in my
mm-hmm,
classrooms also,
mm-hmm,
even so, say for example, like I'm teaching a class which has diverse students, like from
mm-hmm.
physics, biology,
Yeah.
economics,
Mm-hmm,
humanities. Many students are there. So
mm-hmm.
most important viewpoint that come out is because all are not biologists, they don't think in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah,
biodiversity and
yeah.
conservation. So the most
Mm-hmm,
important viewpoint that come out is why should we think about why for example take lorries, right? Why should we
mm-hmm,
bother about lorries? Lorries
mm-hmm,
is not doing anything to us. It's not
mm-hmm,
a very
mm-hmm,
significant seed disperser. Of course, it is pest controller to a great extent.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think, but you can tell us better. But
They do. Yeah.
to weave these things around, like why do we think that Florida's conservation should be important? That has become one of the big questions. But
Question.
now
Yeah.
when you are explaining or when you're talking about the iconic species, so what do you actually, can you
Uh-huh.
expand a little bit on that? What do you actually want us to
What I'm
know about?
Why I am saying it's an iconic species. I actually call it a charismatic mini fauna.
Okay.
And Loris is an interesting, very interesting animal to even think about. So on one hand it has these big eyes, right? And dark, and it's almost looks like owl. So and as some parts of West Bengal, we have this fear of owl, like patch, I think is the spotted owl, I think, is what people are afraid of, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when Hutumpacha call used to happen when I was a kid, and my neighbors, friends used to say that, that's bad omen, stuff like that. So it's sort of stayed in my mind. And you probably also remember when we were in Mudantarai, people used to say that those lorises are bad. I mean, they call it tevango in Tamil, and they're like they have bad omen. They are seeing them is bad, and to
Yeah.
ask me all the time, why am I studying this, the Tebangu, why am I studying Tebangu? Why can't I find on anything else? So there is in rural southern India, there is this thing about lorises that they are bad omen, they're bad, this and that. On the other hand, they also have this thing that they're, they something to do with black magic. And we are still not extremely sure, although there is a recent paper came out about black magic and Slender Loris. But people, I have, while being in Munnatura, I have heard people saying, Munnatura and in Kerala, I mean Tamil Nadu and Kerala, that Lorises, their eyes are eaten, or their hands and legs are eaten for, but it's more like medicinal purpose, and it's not like they eat tiger bones or something like that. It happens not very often. And so, but also at the same time, some people would say, oh, watching a loris or seeing a loris is bad luck, right? So you have that in the rural areas, and I think it is there in Karnataka too, probably in rural Karnataka. Not 100% sure. But when you come to city, both in Bangalore and in Madras, people love them. There is a population in Madras in Kalakshetra, which is, I think, was described by Tara Gandhi few years ago. I mean, before I started the Loris project. So that interest, that people love seeing Lorises, and I'm not sure what it is, why people like it, but I think the urban folks find it very cute.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
If I
so
have a
so
loris in my backyard, definitely I would find it fascinating too. I mean, that's the whole point of biodiversity in your backyard, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah,
So,
and also Lorises used to be kept as pets in urban
yeah,
areas, in Bangalore
yeah,
and
they are
Madras.
very good pets actually. Yeah.
Yes, so I think that's what is very interesting. That's why I think the urban folks finds it that it's very interesting and very fascinating or very charismatic. And I thought that if I really want to work on urban ecology, wanting to work with community members, I need to find something that catches the attention.
Mm.
you know and it's not just, so the whole motto of this project is not just looking at lorises. Of course, I, as a biologist, am interested in the social behavior of lorises in urban areas, and how they're surviving, how they are different from the protected areas. But the other thing that I'm interested in is that how, if lorises are found in habitats where these continuous canopy, certain types of insects, and certain type of canopy structure, they require a lot of thorny bushes, because they hide from their predators. They hide there, they go in there, and especially when there is a baby, they would actually keep the baby thorny, like Ziziphus inoplia. I don't know what's the common name of Ziziphus in Kannada. So Ziziphus inoplia, or even in Bangalore city, I've seen them using bougainvillea.
Oh.
Yeah, so which is
So
interesting,
it's
right?
kind of, so it's kind of a iconic species, as well as it's kind of an indicator species, which kind
It's
of
an indicator
indicates that
species.
okay, it will be found in areas where there will be dense canopy and connected
And yes,
vegetation and things like
yes,
that, right?
yes,
Yeah,
and they really need
cool.
thick canopy too, because they need to have, because they don't sleep in nest holes, they sleep on the canopy. So they need to
Yeah,
have certain canopy structure. For example, in Mundantarai plateau, they use amalthas. Oh, what's the scientific name
I
of
think it's
amalthas? I'm
Cassia
forgetting now.
fistula, probably, no?
Cassia fistula. Yeah, they use cassia fistula a lot, and most of the sleeping sites are in cassia fistula, if it is in the scrub forest or dry forests.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so,
So
so that
Kaveri, from
hmm.
yeah. So maybe we can talk a little bit now about what you are doing for your urban project, and we would be very excited to know. So
Yeah,
let's
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
let's hear that.
Let's see, let's get the slides. Hopefully, yes, there. So this picture, of course, was taken in Mundanturai. This is one of the Lorises that I had radio collared. This is taken by Saravana Kumar, our friend filmmaker. So if you look at, this is why I say it's an iconic animal, because if you look at the animal, and the eyes speak so much, isn't it? um, and I think that's what captures the attention of people.
And this was an
So
iconic picture from Sarah also.
this is
Right.
definitely, this is Sarah's very first picture of capturing
Yeah.
Slender Loris. So yeah, and this is in the wild. This was not, most of the Loris pictures you would see that people have taken, either they have taken in daytime or they have captured the animal and then put it in a stick and took pictures, which is not legal. And by the way, they are still endangered species, and according to Indian Wildlife Act, they are Schedule 1 animal, and therefore you are not supposed to catch them. But I do see even sometimes researchers do capture them and take pictures and stuff. I had taken, by the way, I should say that it took me 2 years to get permission for radio collaring from the Ministry of Environment. Um, so next slide, please. Yeah. So the project is basically looking at Lorises in a mega city, which is also the fastest growing mega city in India, perhaps in Asia or in the world. So it's a participatory citizen science project, which basically means that people are coming together, and they are deciding, taking decision making roles in how and where they are going to look for lorises, what kind of questions they're going to ask from loris, about the loris itself, or loris habitats, or or even what people think and stuff like that. So you can see that the number of people, we had a core group that part of the Loris project, urban, we call it Urban Slender Loris Project, or USLP in short. So the main part of the work is sort of stalled right now because we don't have the money. But the way I started is, I should say, so in 2013 I actually did take people out for Loris walk in ISC campus, and we did some work in GKVK too. We didn't see too many Lorises there, but in ISC campus there was a lot of enthusiasm among students and researchers and faculty members. I took the opportunity to do a survey. So we did an online survey in ISC campus population to see where they have seen lorises, how many years ago, which part. And that survey then went out to the community, outside campus in the Bangalore community. And these are online surveys. So after knowing the where people have seen lorises in the city, which are the areas and stuff like that, 2014 I came back again, and we did a actually started taking people out, not just ISC campus folks, but also people from the community, take them out to show lorises, to gain interests, and people haven't seen them. And then I started talking to them also. So through the interviews that I have done, I realized that there are folks who are our parents' age, they in their like 70s or 80s, they used to see lorises regularly. So they didn't think much about lorises then at that time, because this was like Mr. Prem Koshi from Koshi's has described me, saying that, oh, they were like the squirrels, like they were common, they were found everywhere. But at that time also, Bangalore was small, Bangalore was dense, Bangalore was garden city, so there's a lot of canopy available, right? But and people used to have them at home. Mr. Koshi had 3 of them while growing up in the house, and they used to go out forage, and then they would come back through the window. And Maya Ramasamy, the artist, she also had one when she was growing up, and she said that they used to, somebody found them being sold on the street and got it and gave it to her. And then she said that they used to go out, the animal used to go out at night through the window and would come back at the end of the day, at the end of night. So I started collecting stories, and I started collecting also information about the behavior as well as the past distribution. So where do you find them, where did you find them in the cities? So I did give lots of talks, like you will see in pictures here. I would go out. Next slide, please. I would go out and talk to people. So this is one of the reason that also, as I've been talking about, that why we started
Yeah.
looking at, urban ecology, especially Lorises. And of course, Khaini's book was one of the big influence for us. Next slide. And this is right now, it's old. I mean, it's much bigger now, I guess, the growth wise. But you can still see from between 1537 to now, to 2007, the amazing amount of growth that happened. And most of the growth actually happened in after 2000, right? And I think in between 2015 and 2020, there was like what, 1.5 million people increase in population size. So it's crazy in many ways. Next slide. So yeah, so the whole urban Slender Loris project idea came in, and what I did is I actually started contacting non-profit organizations as well as for-profit. Like EcoEdu is a educational organization, ISC campus, of course, GKVK, there's STF was another organization, a non-profit, Gubi Labs, Koshis, Dakshin is non-profit. So a lot of these organizations, I came back in 2014, and all I did is talking to people, right? Not scientists, not too many scientists, but just common people, going around talking, giving talks. I gave talks in Wipro. I gave talk in Paradigm Shift, used to be a restaurant which used to be run by Soumya Reddy, who is now an MLA. Koshis, of course, I used to go hang out there and talk. Gubi Lab, so a lot of this, Anand from EcoEdu. So basically making people understand, for me to get the information about what is happening in the city, how people know, what people know about Lorises and the habitats and everything, and then and talking to people and see what they want to know, what they want to do about their habitats. I mean, it's so my thing was that it's their backyard, it's not, I'm an outsider still, right? So they need to understand, they need to tell me. I used to just listen, tell me what they want, if they want to conserve Lorises, or if they actually like Lorises. So next slide please. You see that there, my meetings were also here, Wipro, I think this one is in Koshi, the second picture on top, and the third one is in Paradigm Shift. So that's what I did. And we would have, there was one slide I had to remove it, like we would meet up in places like there was an ice cream parlor, there was one restaurant, and then there was one restaurant on top of the metro in Memji Road. So we would go and meet there and talk about how can we get more people interested in Lorises. And that's all I did, like 5-6 months I was there. All I did is just going around talking to people. So it
Yeah.
what
So, can
yeah,
I ask something here? I
bolo.
think it comes to my mind immediately. So, I mean, of course, conservation in the backyard is a very exciting and thrilling topic anyway for a lot of
Mhm,
citizens. Even
mhm,
being a scientist, although I talk about conservation all the time, but when it comes to your backyard, then it becomes even more thrilling, right? To identify what is there, to try
mhm,
to preserve small insects,
mhm, mhm.
butterflies,
Yeah,
caterpillars in your backyard. It's
bees.
really very,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm,
So, so of course, it is, we have certain sections in the community who are very thrilled, who are really passionate about conservation,
mhm,
but we also do have some sections who are
yeah,
opposition in the,
mhm,
oppose these ideas,
mhm,
and
mhm.
are not very open to this kind of approach. So I was wondering
Close.
if you had any challenges,
Oh
or
yes,
did you
I
face
did.
any
Yes, I
challenges?
did.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I did have. And lot of it was, so I call them I hope they won't get offended. I call them passionate conservationists. They're really, really compassionate about conservation. They want to conserve everything, but they also have this privileged, background. In some ways, they think that a lot of them, uh, they they how should I say it? Um, um, I don't want to offend them, but what I'm going to say is that um, they think that lorises are going to be there, or wildlife is going to be there. They could watch it and see it, and if others come and see it, they are going to disappear. These animals are going to disappear. But again, I think that comes from a very privileged mentality that I am the one who has to conserve it. Not everybody else. They don't understand. They don't know it. They will destroy it. Right. So that's again, that's colonizers' attitude, right? That you are the only one who can have the access to resources, not everybody. And in that way, you don't even want to know who what do they know. That's why I said listening is very important, and talking to people from all strata. And what I realized, that people know a lot about lorises. It's only us, some of us, the very strong conservation people, or educators, academics, we would think that, oh, people don't know, they are the one who is destroying everything, and therefore we need to go tell them what to do. And I think that attitude doesn't work for
Yeah, yeah,
a holistic approach or more inclusive approach. And I think that's very important, and that has to happen. And that's another reason that I wanted this community, engaging community, the community based citizen science project.
okay.
so,
Yeah.
so
So
that's also
what?
a science communication. Ha, bolo.
So what are you? So what kind of surveys or what are you doing currently? So
So what we did, we are not doing much currently. What we did is, next slide. um Oh, okay. And this one shows you what we had done. These are the restaurants that we used to meet. I think this one is on top of metro. So the question was that to figure out where the Lorises are right now. Unfortunately, I actually had to remove the slides which had the question why Lorises and what we did. The objective was to figure out where the present distribution of Lorises, because the canopies are very fragmented right now, and as city is growing, you see that things are disappearing very fast. So what are the green patches are left? And there, in the past, Bangalore canopy was very, parks were all connected. Kabban Park was connected with Lalbagh, and Lalbagh was connected with the parks in the south, the big park in the south. I'm forgetting the name. So because of all this growth, all those canopies are not connected anymore. And so we wanted to know what's the present distribution of lorises, where they are found, and what are the possible habitats now, and then what was the past habitats, where they were in the past. And how could we figure out what would be the future. So the that's the basic big goal. So we did that online survey I told you. Then we actually did also diurnal surveys to figure out where those locations are. Here I worked with Dr. Sudhira, to HS Sudhira and Dr. Gururaja, to map the divide the city into grids, 5 square kilometer grids, and each grid to figure out where are the green spaces there, and whether those green spaces are looks like possible loris habitat or not. So that's when I did the diurnal surveys. And while doing the diurnal surveys, the basic surveys, I also did, as all those talkings and everything, showing them Lorises in ISC campus, Loris walks and all. So we did select people who are interested in doing the training. So there was a lot of interest. So we had to, we found people who are interested in it. They had to write to us why they want to do Lorises, why they want to look for Lorises and stuff like that. So we had to figure those things out. And then, based on that, we did the training. So I had to do all the trainings for, I think I did train about probably close to 70 or 80 people. And then those people, we decided on a core team, and that core team started doing the training also afterwards. So then they did the Diane also. Then that also I had to actually work with a plant biologist to give them training on plant stuff. Oh, there are 3-4 questions. Okay. And so once they got to identify plants and habitat and stuff like that, then we started doing the nocturnal surveys. And those are, again, after I got them trained in nocturnal and diurnal surveys. I worked with Navendu Page on identifying trees and stuff like that.
So I
the
would
tree
actually,
Hmm.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Hmm.
No,
No,
go
so
ahead. You were saying.
tree identification training also happened, or habitat identifications and stuff like that. And then lots of outreach. The outreach are all, doing talks and walks and then interviews. So next slide, I'll show you interviews. So here you can see, this is in Koshi's, Mr. Koshi's and his friends, the long-term Bangalore people. They were talking about where they used to see losses as kids. And here, this is very interesting. So the bottom picture is the Shamal is standing there, and Shamal grew up in Bangalore, in ISC campus. But while he was growing up there, he has never seen a loris. So it made me think about that, that Lorises are probably in ISC campus is not too long ago. They occupied, so that was probably open area, open niche that they moved in. And they also, people used to release Lorises, rescuers would go and release Lorises in ISC campus. So that could be one way that population grew so fast. And so, yeah, so animal talking to, long-term residents, animal rescuers, random people in temples and, traditional places, tea kadai, chai shops and stuff like that. We would just go and talk to them for the oral history project. So yeah.
So can I ask something here? Like
Yeah,
when you talk about surveys, generally it comes, or population survey in particular, it comes into our mind about this, how many lorries then you did find, and what is the population. So what is your take on that? So what do you, how
So
do you react as a
yeah,
scientist also, right?
thank you for asking this question. That's a very important question, Jayanti. So for biologists, I mean, the field biologists who are working on population, animal population, or even tree population, we all know that for animal population, it's really difficult to estimate, really difficult to get the exact number. So we have these things, what we call estimation, right? So we estimate what we call density, right? And that, even that time, we can't get always the exact number, right? It's an indication. And for Lorises, it's very difficult to even get absolute density, unless you actually marked an area where you have marked all the animals, so each individuals by marking, radiotelemetry or some other tags, or being there following them for a long time, that these animals are in these areas, individuals are. So that's how you get to know actual number. But in most of the time, what we do is actually get an estimate. We call it, indicator of what the population looks like. And for Loris, I had to come up with this method of, while we were doing the work, is sighting per kilometer of walk. So every time we do these long walks, um, we would mark how many animals we see, we count how many animals we would see and how many kilometers we would walk. So animals, sighting of animals per kilometer walk would give you an estimation of what the population looks like. And, so actually, when people say that how many animals are there in Bangalore city, it's kind of really not just funny, but I always tell people that there's no way you can actually get an estimation, actual number, absolute numbers, unless you have recaptured all the animals in an area. So like other day, I saw a couple of days ago, I think I saw this thing, some civil service officer has written saying that there are 1176 lorises are in India. So therefore, we are going to do a loris sanctuary, which is great. Loris sanctuary sounds good. But again, I wrote to her, this is on Twitter, and she has a big number of followers, and it's like, please, you cannot just get this absolute number 1176. It's like counting tigers, right? And counting lorises are harder than tigers, because tigers
Yeah.
are bigger, lorises are this big. So
And they
yeah,
are
I mean,
also as elusive as tigers. I mean, if they are
or
small as
more.
well as yeah.
Yeah, or more. And they're nocturnal, they're hard to see, and I mean, you probably have seen, how hard it was for us to see them, right?
Yeah, yeah,
In
exactly.
day after day, and with radio colors later. Yeah.
So there are some interesting questions have started coming. So
Uh-huh.
have we finished the slides? Going through the slides, so I can ask
No,
one
we
of you,
still
and then
have some more slides. Can we go through a little bit more? So next one, please. Yeah, so one of the things, the training of lorry service. So what I found is fascinating is that, because it's an urban area, urban lorries project, you can get the kids out there, to look for lorises. So they of course came with parents. This particular one here on the left was really fascinated. It was like 6 years old, 7 years old kid. Uh, Asked me
yeah.
some fabulous questions. So next, please. Next slide. Yeah. So, when we did the nocturnal surveys, these are the results we got. Unfortunately, we could not do. One of the big problem with studying urban ecology is that, there are multiple stakeholders. So it's not only just forest department. You have the, BMC, the municipal corporation. You have private landholders. You have horticulture. We never got permission, for example, from our Carbon Park or Lal Bagh to go out at night to do the survey. So it's really tricky and tough to do the work. So here you can see these green areas are where we found lorises. The triangles are where lorises were there in the past, and the plus signs are actually where the rescue was rescued. And the low, medium, green, the medium, high are actually the kind of forest covers, canopy covers we have in those areas. So next slide. um, I am not going into the detail of the results that we found from the surveys, the density or sighting per kilometer walk and stuff like that. They do vary between patches and between green covers. And there are certain areas where there was report of lorises in the past, but we could not find them. So outreach wise, as I said before, that one of the big thing I am
Sorry,
interested in.
Kaberi, can I ask something here before you proceed to
Bolo.
the outreach?
Yeah.
Regarding the results, of course, we can't discuss it in detail, but anything very interesting that stand out or something that you want to say uh, with
Yeah.
respect?
Yeah. So, one, gosh, there's so many things to say. ISC campus is, of course, a very interesting place because that's where a lot of the Lorises are. That we were, that's our home place where we train everybody and do all the work. But um, these animals are adapting. As I said, that we found Lorises using bougainvilleas, bougainvillea bush climbers in ISC campus. We have seen them using bamboos quite a bit. We also have reports from they use lights, the street lights, for coming, and they would sit, next to the lights to
Mhm.
capture bugs.
Yeah, that
So
I have also seen. Yeah,
you've seen them, right? Yeah. So
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it fascinating that I haven't seen them? I don't think I have any pictures either. But like you reported, that's one of the data point for me. But today I was talking to Vidisha Kulkarni, who is one of our main core team members, who is still continuing to do the surveys, do the Loris works. You know, so she told me today that she's been getting people reporting on IISc campus from next to signboards, various signboards. They're sitting on top of signboards. But also IISc campus is there are problems in IISc campus because there are areas where we have seen Lorises in 2015, 2016. Those areas are now gone. Good
Mm.
Loris habitats gone because they're building structures. And what is sad is that we're still not able to convince them that please keep these certain areas which actually are good Loris habitats.
Okay.
That's a
Now
problem.
maybe quickly, yeah, let's quickly move on to the outreach because we have some questions waiting.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes, yes.
so yeah.
So
Uh,
let's go to the questions first, because outreach, I think people can get it from the, you know, from the slide.
okay. Monica Kaushik, she asks that thanks for sharing your inspiring work on Slender
Mhm.
Loris. I want to know if you have seen differences in activity patterns and behavior of loris in urban and forest landscapes.
Yes,
So,
yes.
and actually, it's connected to the next question, which is she
Mhm.
says, I have seen. So, you mentioned that there are three types of males. Do you see such categorization in urban areas?
We
Uh,
don't have the information, no. And right now I even think that there is a fourth type of male, in terms of the mating behavior, social behavior, uh, uh, which is, I didn't think about it before. So I used to see couple of the males that I had radio collared. I used to see them hanging out with another male, like they would sleep at night also with another male. And
mhm.
I just could not figure out what was going on. Like it's like mating system, right? It has to be another female, or social
Yeah,
system,
that
social
actually,
behavior.
yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, because in evolution and in a lot of
Mhm.
other species, gay or this kind of
Yeah,
interactions
or
have been
homosexual. Yeah,
shown, right?
yeah,
So
same-sex behavior.
homosexual
Same-sex
interactions have
behaviors.
been
Yeah,
mentioned and reported.
yeah. So
Yeah. So our next question about the predators in forest and urban
yeah,
areas.
so I think
So
answering Monica's question.
yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of information, but yes, there are differences in behaviors, overall behaviors in between the lorises in city and in forests. Yes.
And she has also said that behavior of prey predator. I mean, about their prey in the forest as well as urban areas. So of course, urban areas probably predators are less, right? Oh,
Urban areas predators are less, although we don't have any evidence of predators, I mean direct evidence of predators in the forests, but
forest.
I've seen them giving alarm calls during the daytime, hearing the crested serpentine calls in Munaturai,
Mm.
and moving away from the sleeping sites and stuff. So I'm pretty sure birds of prey predate on them.
Okay, Mr. Dinesh Chaturvedi writes, how many of these lorises are there in India and how are they related to monkeys? They seem to be like tiny sloth bears.
Good question. Mr. Chaturvedi, thank you for asking the question. But about how many part, I don't know exact numbers. That's why we scientists talk about density estimations or indicator of how many lorises could be there. So sighting per kilometer walk that I talked about as an indicator. Next question is, they are primate, so they're related to us. We are primates too, but they are more what we call ancestral primate. So in evolutionary scale, if you think of evolution as a tree, and so primate evolutionary tree, lorises have appeared before monkeys and apes. So they are, I won't call it primitive, they're more ancestral. So they have certain characteristics that we also have, like opposable thumb is a primate characteristics, right? Then the forward facing eyes, lorises have forward facing eyes, so that's another
Yeah.
primate characteristics. So if you think about these are two main characteristics that we consider as primates, and they do have them.
Okay.
What was the third question?
Uh, yeah, third question is Vijeta has written, what is the lifespan of these lorises and where can we read more about them and where can we see them? That's actually a very important question, I would think, because people who want to contribute to the citizen science project or be involved. So who can they contact and what can they do as first steps?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
also is
yeah.
important.
So yes, I will talk about it. So we in captivity they can survive up to 15 years. There is a captive population. There was a captive population in Duke University here. I live pretty close to Duke University here, and there was a population in Germany, and then couple of zoos like San Diego Zoo had off exhibit, and Washington Zoo had two. But in the biggest data come from actually Germany. There they have seen surviving up to 15 years of age, but in the wild we have no idea. I did capture both. I did age them based on the teeth structure and the other features, morphological features, and so they have. I've seen them being pretty torn. I mean, the features are like that being very, what do you call the old age of teeth kind of structures and stuff like that. Yeah. For information about lorises, there are a couple of popular science articles people have written. There's few blogs posts. You can see the Mammals of South Asia book has a chapter on Slender Loris. That based on the research that we have done. JLR had a story, Loris story. Sorry, where did I disappear? Um, can you find me, please?
We are here.
Um,
We can see you.
you can see me? I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
see you. What happened? Just a sec. Oh, I went into PowerPoint. Okay, sorry. So yeah, and we have the website. Unfortunately, the website is down, and planning to. I mean, there's a person working on the website. I need to finish it. Hopefully, website will be up soon. We right now don't have grants, and therefore the project is at uh, is at I mean and halt basically. So apart from the Loris walks that Vidisha Kulkarni runs with IISc campus faculty, students, there isn't anything much happening right now. So if you are interested, please let us know. We really need to get going again, need funding. Hopefully we'll have money and interests soon. The more we get interest, we probably would be able to do some crowdfunding too. Next question. Is that
Okay,
answered
yeah,
one?
we have some. Yeah, yeah. So, and as Kaberi said, you can always write to her and send
Yes.
also us an email, as well as we can forward it to her. So
Mhm.
she's very
I'm
open this way.
available all over on social
All
media.
on social media you can find her. Another, I mean, like kind of an ending question ish.
Mm-hmm.
One observation, we also see that, very few people work on lorises, very less is known about lorises. So what is the step ahead of this in terms of research, as well as in terms of taking the urban project ahead? So this both ways, like outreach as well as reach. What are the steps ahead?
Um, few things I think. So there are people who are working on Lorises these days. There is a person who just finished PhD. Sorry, I'm forgetting her name. Smita G is her last name. So she did work on Lorises, Slender Loris. There are a few other people are also working here and there. One of the biggest problem is that well, it because it is an endangered species, it's really really hard to get permits. And as you know that if you want to really get any kind of social behavior data or ecology data, uh, it's really
You have
hard
to follow them.
follow them, and following them without marking is absolutely difficult. And for that you need to get the permission, not only from the forest department but also from the Ministry of Environment. And being a student and researcher from Wildlife Institute of India, remember it took me 2 years to get the permit, and
Mm.
it's getting worse, right? So that's one issue. The other issue is it just takes so long to get any good amount of information, right? So it's not an easy. I mean, every time I remember after finishing my PhD, I said I will never work on lorises again, because I'm going to go work on something that I can actually get data much more easily. But I am so fascinated by lorises and like the challenge so much that I end up going back to work on lorises again. So yeah, I think that these are the biggest challenge. And the third thing, the other big challenge, the biggest of big challenge is money. Unfortunately, we don't really have a whole lot of data on whether these species. Now there are multiple species of lorises, and these are based on morphological data. But then again, there are a very scanty amount of data that people talk about. There's loris classifications, so we don't even have the genetic studies done on to figure out whether there are different species or subspecies. The reason I'm saying that I am doubtful about all these species subspecies divisions, because there are a lot of morphological differences within a population that we have seen in Untaran, like in the rainforest versus in Munantarai plateau. So without having a lot of data, it's really hard to say whether they are different species or not. And as because of that, the gray slender loris or my slender loris, whatever you call the slender loris population now in majority of India, those animals are not endangered at IUCN. They're not in IUCN's red data book. So every time you have that, then it's like, okay, the money has to go to endangered species. So we don't, I mean, I recently
Ah,
submitted a couple of grants and they're like, they're not endangered species. And then urban stuff, people are not interested in, funding money to urban areas as much as they would like to do in protected areas. So these are the
Yes,
difficulties,
yes.
real issues.
And anything for, so like, yeah, I mean, going ahead, then keeping fingers crossed that you definitely receive some funding and positive responses from citizens who can get involved, who can actually participate in this fascinating species conservation project. And of course, uh, it is worthwhile to mention that this conservation or loris conservation can be a huge uh, prospect for undergraduate studying
Yeah,
conservation, so to
I
get
haven't even
hands-on
mentioned.
experience. Yeah.
Yes.
So
So for
and
this is a fantastic project for many, many ways, because the I didn't even talk about the entire Loris project, entire the whole idea of the project. So this is a project which I actually started with these various, it has a big complex model basically I developed. So it will have the social science component where, because you will do the outreach part. Along with that, you're doing oral history, right? So you are actually getting the information about the past distribution or people's attitude. For example, this whole black magic thing, right? Who hates lorises and who likes lorises, this idea. So one of our student, Varsha Vaskaran, who actually worked with me and Harini together, looked at the attitude of the perception people have about lorises. So she did interview 185 people, and then she also worked on the Loris population in Bangalore, in ISC campus. So that's one thing. The other thing is that, lorises are, because they can be indicator of forest health, the they are damn good for climate change. If the climate crisis is real, we are facing it, right? And as we are cutting down the forests or doing all this development, we are facing issues. And the if you have more lorises, that means you are more in mature forest, bigger forest patches, or even in forest, smaller forest patches, you have trees that are close to each other, older trees and stuff like that. So basically, the other thing that we really make people understand that, uh, we need lung space, as one of my colleagues said yesterday, who is also, by the way, Wipro, works in the Wipro, and Wipro Environment or Conservation Club. We Bangalore used to have those spaces, but we don't have it anymore. And having Loris in a space like that, you know, gives us not only just the happiness. I mean, it makes us feel happy. It not only just gives us the good forest cover, but seeing those damn difficult animals makes you feel, once you spot them, it makes you feel so happy. And people, that's why people come and look for losses. And even kids. I mean, today, Vidisha sent me pictures. I couldn't put it up, but those are like kids are coming to watch Lorises with their parents. So that kind of the mental happiness and the psychological health of people is
yeah.
really important, and Loris can provide. I mean, a Loris project can provide that, right? So climate crisis, for teachers, for faculty, university and college faculty members to teach, use these modules as teaching. Environmental education component, I mean, I might have a huge component on environmental education actually, where you can study how to do the environmental education. And there's only one study so far, PhD, that I know actually evaluated the impact of environmental education on conservation, and a very systematic study. So I think that kind of study, you can do through your education department. Azim Premji can do it, or any other universities can do it. We can work with teachers to develop components modules, in K through 12 education, kindergarten through 12 education system, college system. College kids can come and intern. That's what they did.
Mm.
A lot of kids did intern. So tons of possibilities. And I am
Yeah.
open for collaboration. So um, anybody, if you are interested in collaborating with Loris project, please go ahead and write to me. And I'm interested in writing grants with you guys. I want to do it Jayanti next. Hopefully, Hari also would be able to, collaborate. We talked about it a lot. And communication, science communication, that's another
Yeah.
thing that you can do it with this. So, community engagement, so many things.
Well, yeah, I that's really fascinating. I mean, all these opportunities existing, and still we are like in dearth of fund, which is not a very good thing. I think scientists, educators, as well as citizens should take this opportunity and join hands to kind of do some conservation in their backyard and learn from you as well as other trainers. And I think this way community participation can only generate some successful conservation effort anywhere anyway.
Yes.
So
Anywhere in the world.
yeah, having said that, I mean, I would kind of like to maybe sum it up now a bit,
Mhm.
and would like to thank you, Kaberi, for such a wonderful talk and so much knowledgeable about the natural history as well as the project that you are doing. We really hope that you get receive some funding from
Yeah,
nearby
collaboration.
resources
Yeah.
and collaborations. And
Mhm.
of course, I really would love to call you someday to APU to watch Lorises when our trees grow. Hi.
Yeah, exactly.
So
No, and also, I think,
when we have a
places like Bangalore University, I think you guys should take it up and go look for Lorises in Bangalore University.
yeah,
Bangalore
so
University
I
campus
wish we
has.
will also have a population sometime in future. But yeah, it was really nice listening to you, and thank you. It was a pleasure having you here today, and after so many
Thank
years
you.
connecting with you.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Thank
Kaveri.
you. Thank you. You're
I would
welcome.
like
I
to
loved it.
bring back Shashwat now.
Yeah. Thank you, Jayanti, for hosting it.
My pleasure.
Hi, Shashwat.
Maybe. Yeah, thank you so much. And to all our viewers, we will meet next time on the next edition of Nature in Our Cities. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thanks again. Thanks for hosting it.